Bleacher Report made a really cool list, and they make many, so go check this one out, and I'm going to bring you the highlights that I have in it. As a movie guy and a sports guy, it's sort of my ideal list. But it's the top 25 fictional teams in movie history. They left out my favorite, which I'll get to at the end. So go to Bleacher Report if you want to see the whole list, but here's my highlights of their list. First of all, at number 23, they include the New York Knights from the Natural, the adaptation of the Bernard Malamud novel with Robert Redford as Roy Hobbs. Interesting thing, some of you may not know that Hobbs getting shot at the beginning of the movie based loosely on the real-life shooting of Philadelphia Phillies first baseman Eddie Waitkus, who was also shot and then came back. He didn't come back quite as historically as Hobbs. But that's a totally interesting story to check out, the Eddie Waitkus story. Robert Duvall, Glenn Close, Barbara Hershey, Joe Don Baker as essentially Babe Ruth. Come on, that's good stuff. Kim Basinger is in that movie. Robert Prosky from later showed up on Hill Street Blues. The Natural is a totally solid movie. I could do without the fireworks at the end when he hits the lights smashing when he hits the light stanchion, but it's a wonderful movie and the New York Knights, a great inclusion on the list. This is my favorite one. They have at number 21, the softball game in Seinfeld of the Improv taking on Rochelle, Rochelle, the musical. The cast of Rochelle, Rochelle, of course, including Bette Midler, who George Costanza bowled over at the plate, forcing her understudy into the role, the understudy, of course, being dated by Jerry Seinfeld. A great, great, great inclusion in this list by Amber Lee at Bleacher Report. So that made the list, the inclusion of Rochelle, Rochelle versus the Improv in softball. At number 19, the Average Joe's Dodgeball team. I think Dodgeball is an enormously underrated movie. It turns out I'm not alone, which of course argues against it being underrated. But Ben Stiller, Vince Vaughn, the great, great, great undervalued Rip Torn, Justin Long, Stephen Root, Alan Tudyk is in that movie, an enormously talented guy. Alan Tudyk played the Phillies manager in 42, the Jackie Robinson story. Jason Bateman and of course Gary Cole. No movie with Gary Cole can possibly be bad. At number 15 on the list, by the way, the Average Joes were number 19. Number 15 on Amber Lee's list of the 25 best fictional teams ever, from Bring It On. There have been a lot of sequels to Bring It On, but the only one worth watching is Bring It On. It is an infectious, fun movie. Gabrielle Union, Kirsten Dunst, Eliza Dushku. She's so pretty. Okay, let's not focus on that. But it was the Compton Clovers and the Rancho Carne Toros. It's a good movie. Have you seen that movie, Mike? Yeah, it's just flat out good. So that's number 15. Number 13, The Bad News Bears, the original, 1976. Walter Matthau, Tatum O'Neal, Jackie Earle Haley. So good, The Bad News Bears. And such a funny movie, such an incredibly sweet movie. I love that film. And the sequels, some of the sequels were okay, but then the reinvention in this century with Billy Bob Thornton was a tragic, tragic mistake. Number 11, Amber Lee just describes it as the Cornfield Ghost Team from Field of Dreams, was just whispered to me by Mike. Thank you. Again, sort of a great cast in that movie. Kevin Costner, Amy Madigan, Timothy Busfield in that movie. Gabby Hoffman, for those of you who are enjoying, as everybody should, Girls, playing Adam's sister. She's so great. Ray Liotta, of course, and mainly Burt Lancaster in that great moment when Gabby is choking on the hot dog and she falls off and he has to make the choice of whether he lives out that dream he had on the Field of Dreams, but if he steps across the field, he goes back to being the doctor from Minnesota. Moonlight Graham, it's just such a great moment, man. I love that moment. It's so good. And then Timothy Busfield says to Costner, "Do not sell this land." It's good. It's just good stuff. Number 10 on the list from Slapshot, George Roy Hill's other movie. George Roy Hill directed some great, great movies. I mean, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid and The Sting, and then you throw Slapshot in there with, obviously with Paul Newman and Michael Ontkeen, who later made more of a name for himself in Twin Peaks. It's just, it's great stuff. It's great stuff. And Slapshot is a classic, wonderful sports movie. And the Charleston Chiefs minor league hockey team and the Hanson brothers, a great inclusion on the list. They're at number 10. Number 8, we move back to television, and it's the Dillon High School Panthers from Friday Night Lights. The movie, Peter Berg's movie, was great, but the TV show was really a really special show, and I think part of this renaissance that television has had over the last 15 years. Jesse Plemons, of course, was also, he's not in that shot there, but remember that Jesse Plemons was on the Panthers, and Jesse Plemons, of course, shows up in the last couple seasons of Breaking Bad so wonderfully. Taylor Kitsch, Connie Britton, who's on Nashville now, and American Horror Story before that. Connie Britton's such a great actor. And Kyle Chandler. And just the way that thing was, Zach Gilford, Minka Kelly, who dated Derek Jeter, for crying out loud. It's just such a great cast. And the way that was put together is that, I don't know whether they continued it throughout, but so much of that was not directly scripted. There were ideas that they had to shoot, and then they would shoot those scenes, and the actors would be given freedom to get to where they needed to go inside the scene, and it worked incredibly well. At number 7, the Rockford Peaches from A League of Their Own, Penny Marshall's movie with Tom Hanks. It's one of those rare Tom Hanks Madonna vehicles. Also, of course, Rosie O'Donnell, but there's nothing wrong with including the Rockford Peaches on that list. Number 3 I like because it's the Cleveland Indians. The fictional Cleveland Indians from Major League. Such a great movie. Rene Russo, Tom Berenger, Corbin Burnson playing just the loathsome third baseman. Dennis Haysbert with Joe Boo, the Bat, a nickname that I sometimes give to my daughter. Wesley Snipes, Willie Mays Hayes, James Gammon played the manager, Lou Brown. So it's a great baseball movie. And one of the most famous lines from the movie wasn't even in the movie about that he didn't think the ball would be out of there, and it wouldn't have been out of a lot of parks. Name one, Yellowstone. That's only in the trailer, not in the movie. Number 2 on the list, how do you not include this? The Hickory High Huskers from Hoosiers, Gene Hackman, Barbara Hershey, Dennis Hopper. So good. And here's one thing that I just learned. The actor who played Jimmy Chitwood in the great scene at the end where Gene Hackman designs a play with Jimmy as the decoy, and the team looks at him like he's from another planet. They're like, "You're not going to give the ball to Jimmy?" And then Hackman's like, What? And he looks at Jimmy, and Jimmy just goes, "I'll make it." And they're like, "All right, Jimmy, take it." Anyway, so that actor is a guy named Maris Valanis, and he's now nearly 50 years old. He lives out here in Los Angeles, and he's like in construction. But people still recognize him all the time. He's got a family, he's successful. They still recognize him. But also, as he gets ready to take that shot, he's told that, make it or not, the crowd's gonna rush the court because they need that shot. So really the pressure to hit it in that first take and save a bunch of editing difficulties was necessary. He made it in the first take. He made it in the second take for the crowd rushing the court. I love that story. So those are the ones that are on the list that I love, and it's a worthy list. Amberley's list on the Bleacher Report. Definitely check it out. It does not include the remake, the 1994 remake of Angels in the Outfield, whatever, with Danny Glover, Tony Danza. Ben Johnson is in that movie. But who's also in that movie is Adrian Brody and Matthew McConaughey as guys on the team, as well as former Oakland A and Boston Red Sox hitter Carney Lansford. But to me, most important, of course, is the presence of my favorite baseball player of all time, in 1977 Sporting News American League Rookie of the Year, Mitchell Page, who has a great line to Danny Glover when he's frustrated at the way the Angels have been playing. He says they're going to be at practice tomorrow, and they're going to work on fundamentals. And Mitchell Page delivers this line. Fundamentals in the middle of the season? That's great stuff. So I have to include them. Not a great movie. I got it. Ben Johnson is in that movie, for crying out loud. The remake. Ben Johnson. One of his last roles before he died in 1996.